Well, that time is almost here, Ed, and that is conference championship weekend. Whoever wins these games this weekend is going to the Super Bowl. And listen, if conspiracy holds true, if you know what I'm talking about, we're going to get a Ravens and 49ers Super Bowl. Those who know. If you look at the colors of the. Anyway, the point is, we are one step away from the biggest game of the year, and I, for one, cannot wait for it. What's up, guys? I'm David Street, and this is Total Sports Talk. What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Total Sports Talk. Once again, I am David Street, and if you missed our last episode, Matthew won't be able to be here because he's got his own stuff going on, but he'll be back shortly. But I do want to introduce my other co-host, Ed Smith.
Welcome, y'all.
Yeah, so Ed, when I'm looking at the Chiefs Ravens game, I got to be honest. A lot of things, like not everything, but a lot of things to me point to the favor of the Ravens. I mean, for one, the game is in Baltimore, and the Ravens were the best team in the NFL. Certainly the best team in the AFC. If you want to argue that the 49ers were the actual best team in the NFL, certainly in the AFC, the Ravens, were the best team in the regular season. And I don't want to take anything away from the Chiefs. Like, I know it's Patrick Mahomes, it's Andy Reid, and this is what, the sixth straight year that they've gone to the conference championship, which is just absolutely freaking insane. And as we've talked about many times before, this was not a good Chiefs team in the regular season, at least when you compare it to other teams in the Mahomes Reid era. But they've proven that they can just flip a switch. But when I'm looking at these units, like I'm looking at the Chiefs' offense, I'm just not that impressed with the Chiefs' offense. Again, that is despite having Patrick Mahomes. I know they beat Miami, but I think as we've all seen, we all kind of understand the Miami Dolphins were kind of a fraud this year. They looked great against cruddy teams, but they looked really bad against good teams. And then meanwhile, the Ravens, we're talking about a team that has beat, I think it's 10 teams with a winning record, which, by the way, is an NFL record. So if you want to talk about battle tested, Ed, you're not going to find a more battle tested team than the Baltimore Ravens. Like, you're just not. And what I really don't like here for the Chiefs is that not only are you dealing with an offense that pretty much average, but they're going up against a defense that has iterated time after time after time after time is good. For to put it mildly, a good Baltimore Ravens defense, and one that does have one of the best secondaries in the NFL. In fact, you could argue maybe they even have the best secondary in the NFL. Depending on which stats you're going with here. But Ed, let me ask you this: when you're comparing the Chiefs offense to the Ravens defense, I mean, I just can't find anything in favor of the Chiefs here. And the fact that it's, in Baltimore certainly doesn't bode well for the Chiefs. But are you seeing it the same way? Or are you seeing it differently? What do you think?
I think the great equalizer is Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. That dynamic duo is really what has propelled the Chiefs to be in six straight conference championship games. Yes, they've got great talent with Travis Kelsey, and in the past they had Tariq Hill, and right now they're dealing with second tier wide receiving core, which at least Rasheed Rice is kind of panned out for him. But when you were talking about, overall, this is a running football team. So it all comes down to Pacheco. And, will he be neutralized by the Ravens linebacker core?
But I think, and that's a good point. But who do we trust more, Pacheco or the linebacker duo of Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen? Because I got to go with the defenders here. What do you think?
Same. I'm right there with you. This is probably one of the more dominant linebacking duos that I've seen in a while. And we're talking about a franchise that has been known since they moved to Baltimore to be built on its defense before any offensive firepower comes to pass with them.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I think one thing to me that like really sticks out about Baltimore's defense, and I don't want to take credit for this because I've seen other people make this point, and it is a good point. If you've noticed that this Baltimore defense seems especially equipped to specifically stop Kyle Shanahan style offenses, the offense that Kyle Shanahan likes to run. The Ravens have faced similar offenses in the regular season, and they were able to just, complete. Oh, sorry, I jumped the gun here. My bad. Sorry, all. That's my bad. My brain's kind of fried. I kind of went straight into the Super Bowl here. Um, that's my fault. But either way, the point remains that, in my opinion, this defense just seems all too equipped to stop an offense. Like the Chiefs. But Ed, why don't we talk about the opposite here? When you're looking at the Ravens offense versus the Chiefs defense, what are you
Mm-hmm.
seeing here?
I'm seeing a Chiefs defense that has trouble with a freelancing quarterback, a quarterback that can take over a game with his legs versus a scheme. Yes, the Chiefs' defense is so much better than what it has been over the previous years that they've gotten this into the playoffs. But when we're talking about the Ravens' offense, you're going to have the great equalizer in Lamar Jackson. I mean, he is healthy, he is focused, he is motivated, and it's going to be tough to stop him. Now, who's out there to work with him? I You've got Zay Flowers. I think everybody's expecting Zay Flowers to have a big game. They just activated Mark Andrews from IR just for this game, just to see if he can go. But I really think Odell Beckham is going to remind everybody who Odell Beckham is. That's because when he is on his game, Odell Beckham is one of the best wide receivers that is in the league. But he's been just so kind of floaty out there, not really focused type of guy like he was when he first came in the league. I think getting this close to the Super Bowl, he's going to have one of those games that reminds everybody who he is. Now, that's not to say that the secondary of the Chiefs, McDuffie uh, and Snead and Reed and Edwards, you know, like they're Swiss cheese or anything. That is a great pass defense. But when you play man within 20-yard in the red zone, you know, probably 70-80% of the time, guess what that leaves open? You've got your back to the quarterback, and you've got one of the quickest quarterbacks that has ever played this game, back there, and he's going to see that opening and, take advantage of it. So I don't see how, even with Chris Jones plugging up the middle, how the Ravens offense becomes stagnated by this upgraded Chiefs defense.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm looking at the two defenses here, they're fairly evenly matched in a lot of key categories. However, that being said, there is one really key category that the Chiefs defense is actually not good in at all, that the Ravens actually thrive in. And do you know what that is?
Rushing touchdowns by the quarterback.
Okay, fair. But what I was thinking of actually is that the Chiefs defense is not good at producing turnovers at all, whereas Baltimore is one of the best defenses at producing turnovers. Listen, maybe that's not going to matter, but if you're not able to produce turnovers at a high rate, then that's not. I'm not saying it's impossible for you to win, but that does make things harder for you, in my opinion. But beyond just the offense and defense here, because we know that offense and defense are not just the only units. We also have special teams as well. And when I'm looking at the Chiefs' special teams and the Ravens' special teams, pretty much everything to me points in favor of the Ravens. Like when you look at their, punt returns, their kickoff returns, and whatnot. When it comes to their, kickers, like comparing Justin Tucker and Harrison Butker, I think if you want accuracy, then go with Butker. But if you want someone who's more reliable, more sturdy, like someone you can rely on during clutch moments, then like how can you not go with Justin Tucker? You know what I mean?
Hook
Yeah. Well,
Justin
well, listen,
Tucker from the University of Texas.
I don't know why I always forget. I don't know why I always forget that. But of course, you being a Texas fan, of course, you knew that. Yeah, but listen, guys. I don't think it's a surprise. The Ravens are the favorites. I think they're minus 203, if I remember correctly. But the Ravens are the favorites, and I gotta say, Ed, I think the Ravens are going to take it. Now, part of this stems from me just being sick and tired of Taylor Swift, and just being sick and tired of the Chiefs. Period. Let another team take control of the AFC. I don't think it's going to be a dominant victory, a blowout of any sorts, because listen, you don't blow out the Chiefs in the postseason unless you're the Bucks. But I'm gonna take I'm gonna take the Baltimore Ravens in a 32 to 29 victory. What say you, Ed?
I think that um, the Chiefs. Well, last time I saw the over under on this, it was 44. I think they barely eclipse it, and the Chiefs will have 23 points. The Ravens 24. This is going to be the game of the year, and I don't see how it couldn't be one of the most exciting championship games we've seen in a while. This is going to be playoff football at its finest coming into this game because simply you've got star power all over the field, and nothing's going to stop it from being you know
Yeah, absolutely. But as we all know, this is not the only conference championship, because we also have the NFC championship. This is the one where a Kyle Shanahan offense is playing. Not like I said before. Again, that's my fault for the mistake. But in this one, we got the Detroit Lions against the San Francisco 49ers, and I think we've got one team that's just absolutely loaded everywhere. Offense, defense, the whole shabazz. And then we have a Lions team that is really kind of just riding that underdog role, and certainly they're underdogs in this game. But Ed, why don't we look at the when you look at the 49ers offense compared to the Lions defense, I mean, like, this has to be in favor of the 49ers, right?
It most certainly does look in favor of the 49ers. But when you look at the Lions defense, they've got some playmakers on the field, particularly Aiden Hutchinson. Uh, the the big matchup that I'm looking forward to in this game is Hutchinson versus Trent Williams, because whoever wins that battle is going to really tip the scales one way or the other. Because if Aiden Hutchinson can get to Brock Purdy, that could possibly create those turnovers that are going to be necessary to beat a team like the 49ers in an environment like this. To really put it out there that the Lions are here and they are for real. And just as a note, the last time that the Lions won a road playoff game, any guesses?
19.
1957.
Oh, okay,
1957 against
okay, wow.
the 49ers. This was, so I think it's fitting that this is coming around in a year in which Detroit is trying to take its place back atop the NFL. Uh, but when you, but in the end, when you have that much star power on offense versus the one or two stars that the Lions defense has, I have to go with the 49ers on this one, having the advantage on that side of the ball. Because like I've said plenty of times on this show, Trent Williams makes makes the 49ers offense. If he is healthy and engaged and ready to go, then Brock Purdy can run this offense efficiently and the way that he needs to. When he's not there, he gets a little rushed because his backside is not covered as well. And, that's when mistakes happen. That's when those turnovers can show up. But, what helps, not having those turnovers, being able to turn around and hand it to the best running back in the league in Christian McCaffrey, or turn around and hand it to Deebo Samuel, which was not on the injury report that was submitted today. So that's an important development that I did see. And also, you've got Brandon Ayuk, who has become kind of a Swiss Army knife of route running for the 49ers. There's a lot to like about this offense, and there's only a couple of things to like about the Lions defense. I mean, David, am I off my rocker in saying that?
No, no, not at all. I mean, listen, like the Lions, I've said many times before that the Lions defense certainly improved from last year. And they do have one of the best rushing defenses, so credit where credit is due. But overall, the Lions defense is just not that impressive. And it certainly doesn't help when you're going up against an absolutely loaded 49ers offense. Ed, like how loaded is San Francisco's offense? I think I saw somewhere that they're the first team in NFL history to produce four guys with 1,000 scrimmage yards, which is just insane.
And Christian McCaffrey with 2,000.
Yes, yeah. I mean, like all I gotta say is, good luck stopping that offense, especially being in Santa Clara, California. All right. But listen, the Lions may not be that good defensively, okay, but they are elite offensively, okay? They were one of the best offenses in the league this year. Jared Goff has been really good for Detroit since being traded from the Rams, and also they had one of the best rushing offenses in the league as well. The duo of Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery really packs a punch. But even so, when I'm comparing their offense to the 49ers defense, I got to give the edge to, the 49ers here. I mean, like when you got guys like Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner, and then who's that one defensive back? Charvarius Ward, I think is his
Uh-huh.
name. He's got
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's got 5 interceptions. I mean, like this. Oh, and how can I forget Nick Bosa, the face, the star of the San Francisco defense, and really pretty much like the face of the team. If you will.
Mhm.
Like I cannot like when I'm looking at this matchup here. There's almost something here that makes me want to pick the Lions offense, even though it was one of the best offenses in the league. This San Francisco defense is loaded. Like they are salty. They can get after pretty much anyone they want to. It doesn't matter what kind of offense you run. That 49ers defense is going to eat you alive. And but Ed, as we've talked about before, we know that it's not just the offense and the defense. There's always the special teams as well. And when you're when
Mhm.
you're looking at the special teams, who stands out? What stands out in your opinion?
What stands out in my opinion, and to me, it's the punting situation. Mitch Wishnowsky, he is very consistent. He's has great hang time, uh, but when you look at Jack Fox, I've seen him shank a few. So that's a field position thing. When you're talking about two teams that are built similarly, which these two teams are, you know, that field position portion of the game is going to be a big factor. I don't think the kickers are going to be as big a deal in this game. You know, other than making extra points, you know, giving away free points to the other team. Uh, but when it comes to field position, I think that is a bigger point of emphasis in this game than what uh, the kickers provide. Uh, just just by not giving away free points. Now, what uh, somebody I had seen this comparison made earlier this year that the Detroit Lions are basically the 49ers' little brother. And what was meant by that is they're built in the shadow of the 49ers, but they are just not on the same level as far as talent wise as what the 49ers provide. And I thought that was quite uh, quite an astute observation. And the betting lines are consistently showing that. Last I saw, 49ers are a 7.5 point favorite at 51.5 points and a minus 340 on the money line. So yeah, everybody wants the Lions to win. I think they've taken the moniker of America's team just because they want to see some new blood in the Super Bowl. But uh, when it but as far as uh, when it comes to the team that the Lions are, they're just going to be on another level down from what the 49ers, and that's going to be my prediction on it, that it's actually going to be a 10-point game. 49ers 27, Lions 17. uh, are you somewhere similar to that, David?
Well, I can definitely understand your prediction. And the 49ers are the favorites for a reason. But listen, dude, I picked the Lions to rep the NFC before the season started, and I'm going to stick to my guns here. Like, I know most things in this particular game, they point toward the favor of the Lions, or excuse me, the 49ers. But I just gotta go with my gut here, and I'm gonna take the Lions in an upset victory. I'm gonna say, Um, give me the Lions in a 28-21 victory. I think it's going to be a 7 point win, and I think Jared Goff is going to toss a late minute touchdown pass to Sam Laporta in the fourth quarter, and the Lions advance to the Super Bowl for the first time in their franchise's history, which is nuts because it's the
So let
Lions
me
are
ask you
talking.
this. You brought up Laporta. Which tight end is going to have a bigger game, George Kittle or Sam Laporta?
Okay, this is tricky because you would think I would say George Kittle, right? But uh, you know what? I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna go with Sam Laporta. Okay, like mark it down right now. I'm gonna say that Sam Laporta has a bigger impact than George Kittle. Okay, and if I am wrong, y'all can roast me in the comments all you want. I can handle it. But give me Sam Laporta to have a bigger impact than George Kittle. I am saying that right now.
I would, and I'm going to say that I agree with you because I think the Lions offense runs more through Sam Laporta than what the Niners offense runs through George Kittle. It's just that simple. The game plan uh, is just that way when it comes to Kyle Shanahan's offense versus Dan Campbell's.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Um, you know, lots of listen. We don't know what's going to happen. It's all a quirky. And guys, speaking of a quirky, have you ever wondered how God and science can mix well together? Well, believe it or not, they actually can. Some people don't think they can, but they actually can because the world is a quirky place, and there is so much that we really don't know. But if you want to get close to knowing it, then tune in to Quirks of Creation, an ADP production. Justin Frey to take you on a journey through all that God has to offer with his magnificent designs. You can find their episodes on YouTube as well as Rumble. Again, that is Quirks of Creation. Stick with the NFL here today, folks. And a couple hirings have now been official. One of them actually is a huge surprise, but we'll get to that in a bit. But first of all, the Atlanta Falcons have officially hired Raheem Morris. He was the former defensive coordinator for the Rams, and a familiar name as well, as he was at one point the head coach of my Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But believe it or not, Ed, there's also a familiarity aspect here with the Falcons as well, because he was actually the interim head
Mm-hmm.
coach for the Falcons back when they fired, Dan Quinn. Listen, when you're judging Raheem Morris as a head coach, they say that results matter, and you look at the results; they're not good. I mean, the guy has a 21-38 head coaching record. Now, in fairness, you might want to argue. You can argue that his true, you might say his true head coaching record was with the Bucks, and that was well over 10 years ago. And then with the Falcons, I mean, he took over in an interim spot. He took over a Falcons team that was just a complete dumpster fire back then. So you might say that maybe his record as a head coach is a little misleading. But listen, like as the Rams defensive coordinator, the Rams have had a very good, very solid defense under Raheem Morris. Now, it should be noted that, in fairness, I think either you or I could look good as a defensive coordinator, Ed, if we coached Aaron Donald, right? I mean, when you coach a generational talent, I mean, we're talking about a guy that a lot of people are saying could possibly be the greatest defensive player that we've ever seen, like the greatest defensive player of all time. You're coaching a guy like that. That certainly does make your job a little bit easier. But nonetheless, obviously, the Falcons were impressed enough with the coaching job that he has done to give him the position. Now, it's also well established. Sorry, it's also well established that Bill Belichick was heavily in the running, and it seemed like he was going to get the coaching position in Atlanta, but ultimately it fell through. Now, why wasn't it Bill Belichick? Well, frankly, Ed, this is actually really easy for me to see, okay? And it all just kind of points to the fact that Belichick's record without Brady is very concerning, okay? With Brady, he had a phenomenal record, but without Brady, yeah, it was not good at all. Now he is a brilliant defensive mind. Certainly a better defensive mind than Raheem Morris says. I don't think anybody is going to argue against that. But I think beyond his record without Brady, Ed, I think the other thing, in my opinion, that ultimately hurts Belichick, and it's something that he cannot control, but it is what it is. He's old, okay? The dude, how old is he? Like what, 66, 67? He's up
72.
72. Wow. The dude is 72 years old. And if you've noticed, the NFL is really just the NFL is really kind of just like moving in this trend of hiring younger up and coming coaches. Well, maybe up and coming is not the right term for Raheem Morris because he has been the head coach before. But the point I'm trying to make is that the NFL in general is really moving more in this direction of hiring younger coaches. Obviously, that's not always the case. I mean, look at Jim Harbaugh. The dude is 60, 61 years old, and he just got hired by the Chargers. But that is an exception. Generally speaking, I think we are seeing that the NFL is moving in a younger direction, and that especially includes the coaches as well. Ed, do you agree? Do you disagree with me that Belichick's old age is a major factor in him not getting the Falcons position and just him not getting any jobs this offseason?
I think it's a reason, but I think it's part of a bigger discussion because Bill Belichick, for the majority of his time, if not all his time in New England, was also the general manager. So he's
Mm,
not going to want to relinquish what how he's done that job uh, over the past 20 years. So does an organization like the Falcons just completely upturn the traditional structure of what an NFL franchise is supposed to how it's supposed to run to accommodate a coach that was not very good as a GM, as far as draft picks, but shrewd on some movements that he had made, especially for the defensive side of the ball. Uh, is Arthur Blank supposed to just give away control to a coach like that may only be around for at max 2 to 3 years? I don't think so.
Mm.
You've got to, if you're going to make a move like that, you need to have that person in place for long term, not for the short turnaround to try and get him to a certain point and then trying to hand the reins over to somebody else that more than likely would be two people to fill the one person's job. And I don't think that is a good business practice for Arthur Blank and the Falcons. So that's why I think he didn't get
That's
the
a good
job,
point.
is because it would cost too much in the long run than it would to just go ahead and hire him in the short term.
That is a good point, Ed. And I have a question to ask you about Bill's GM abilities. And like this is gonna sound very strong. And not that Bill Belichick was doing this on purpose, but do you think do you think that Bill Belichick ultimately became lazy with his GMing because of just how good the offense always was under Brady? Do you think he got lazy as a GM?
One of the things that any GM needs to do on a consistent basis, and whether it works out or not, is continue to draft quarterbacks, because you never know when you need that extra quarterback. They didn't know they needed Brady when Drew Bledsoe went down, but there he was, and then everything started to churn from there. But after Brady became stabilized as the stalwart of the Patriots offense, Belichick stopped drafting quarterbacks. You know, every couple of years, you should see if you can get one that you can develop and move on from. They wound up, striking, getting lucky with Garoppolo and a couple other guys, but uh, he just did not do those necessary things as a GM, because he was always looking for that value player to fit into the Patriot way, that that's what that team was built on. So every GM in the league that's worth his salt will continue to draft quarterbacks, to see if there is a possibility of development, to look toward the future, not just continue to plug holes in what you have now.
Yeah, and I gotta say, last point about Raheem Morris. I would have thought that the Falcons would have gone for a more offensive-minded head coach, like someone to like really, because the Falcons' offense was not good at all, and Desmond Ritter so far has not been a good quarterback. So I would have thought that the Falcons would have brought someone more offensive-minded. Now, let me clarify here that yes, I am also on record saying that I think the concept that you have to hire a certain minded coach is can be overrated. I mean, who's to say that Raheem Morris cannot hire a phenomenal offensive staff? Like, I'm sure it's going to happen. And Ed, like, when you look at it, because if I remember correctly, I think Arthur Blank or not Blank, Arthur Smith, I think I believe he called all the plays on offense for the Falcons, and then now obviously he's gone. What do you think Raheem Morris is going to do as far as an offensive staff, or at the very least, if there is an offensive coordinator he should go after, who should it be, or should he just hire in house? What do you think?
I I wouldn't be surprised if he took the D'Amico Ryan's philosophy and bring the quarterbacks coach from the Rams, because that's going to system. You've got all that experience, all that knowledge of offense in the NFL that you can take and just let him run with the offense, as well as develop whoever you draft. Because I I don't see the Falcons not drafting a quarterback in the first round this year. Yes, they're at pick number 8, which means they would have to do some finagling. But I think there's going to be one there that they can get, whether it be in the realm of Drake May, if they overvalue somebody like Michael Penix after his performance in the college football
Mhm.
playoff. There's players to be had there. Uh, but as far as what you're asking to, as far as a coordinator or somebody like that, I I don't have the list of coordinators that they are targeting, but I would not be surprised um, if he went after people that he is currently familiar with from being in LA, and bringing them along with him.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point. And speaking of coordinators, getting jobs, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers suffered a massive loss when we lost Dave Canales to the Carolina Panthers. And before I let Ed take this, I'm just gonna say real quick that listen, overall, our offense was not that impressive, but what made Canales so impressive this season is the fact that he did turn Baker into a very solid player. And Ed, I'm going to let you take that and expand on that.
Sure. So, and it when it comes to Canales' coordinator uh, coaching, rise through the ranks, if you will, all the way from USC in 2009. Um, you know, I would give him some credit for Russell Wilson because he has been in Seattle since 2010 all the way through 2022. Now, what happened in 2022, you may ask? Well, he got Gino a bag.
Yeah, and
He got
who saw that
after
coming,
Russell
right?
Wilson left. Yeah, exactly. Who saw this uh, third round quarterback that transferred from North Carolina State to Wisconsin, the face of the NFL for a few years, and then have that guy get traded away, and then take his backup and turn him into an all-world quarterback for a year and catch him a bag, and then go across the country and get Baker Mayfield into the mindset of a quarterback that most teams in this league would want to have. You know,
Mm,
he Baker Mayfield, while in Tampa, was not the sullen, melancholy, oh, type of guy. He was a truly a team guy with, phenomenal talent, arm talent, and, whiteboard talent. And he was able to put that together with, the weapons that he did have around him. Sure, no running game, which means that he had to throw the ball a lot more than what you would anticipate a guy going first year in a new offensive system. But he's done that before several times. So Canales going to Carolina, you got to think that he's going to be able to teach Bryce Young some of these same things that he taught Russell Wilson, because they're closer in stature, with, you know, Russell Wilson, Baker Mayfield, Bryce Young.
mm.
I see them all as being closer in stature and learning to throw through windows through the offensive line, which I don't think Bryce Young was developed to be able to do that. Through this last season with Frank Reich. So that I think is a big, feather in the cap for Canales. Getting that job. Now, what he does with the defense, I think they're going to lean more on the GM, Dan Morgan, to bring in that side of the ball to continue to improve the defense, which wasn't that terrible last year. But what you really needed in Carolina is somebody to turn that offense into one that can move forward instead of stalling three and out.
You're exactly right, and we've talked about it before. I mean, despite the Panthers overall being a terrible team, when it came to total defense, they had one of the best defenses in the league. And and listen, certainly, I think. I can certainly understand the philosophy that the Panthers are going with here because the NFL, at the end of the day, is a quarterbacks league. Okay, and Canales' track record with quarterbacks ultimately speaks for itself. And after the struggles that Bryce Young had, at number one pick, I'm definitely not surprised that they went after a guy like Canales. And listen, I don't blame Canales. I mean, even though he's going to a division rival, I don't blame him for taking the job because what is this? It's a promotion at the end of the day. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel for Baker, man, okay? Because this dude cannot catch a break. Like he cannot find any consistency with his offensive coordinators. It's like why do y'all hate Baker that much? But I will say this, okay? I will say this. I want to opine on this. And I've seen this point made before, and I agree with it 100%. I think the silver lining we can find out of this, Ed, is that now, assuming that Baker and Mike Evans come back, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have become an attractive destination for an offensive coordinator. When you got guys like Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, again, that's assuming they come back, Chris Godwin, Rashad White, who really got better toward the end of the season. This does seem like an attractive opening for an offensive coordinator. What do you think?
Well, if the offensive coordinator that they bring in has a lot of success, but yet the team as a whole fails, they will have really set themselves up for becoming the new head coach. Uh, because Todd Bowles, I, as well as he did toward the end of the season, kind of helping the team along to get to the playoffs and win the atrocious NFC South, there's still not a lot of confidence within the fan base. And you said it yourself. Not a lot of confidence in Todd Bowles being the head coach long term for this team.
Hmm.
So if you get an offensive coordinator in there that really stands out, but Todd Bowles, appears to not be as in tune with the team as the offensive coordinator is, you could see Todd Bowles get pushed out and have that coordinator take over the team in 2025.
Yeah, 100%. But listen, I ultimately I think Bowles' job is safe. Because the Bucks were expected to be terrible, and we completely just surpassed expectations. Bowles is going to get another shot, but there's like it does lead me to wonder, Ed, that if we do ultimately keep Bowles and then, we don't do well, or we do well because we're in the cruddy NFC South, it does make me maybe kind of wonder, like what if? Because like what if we do fire Todd Bowles because there is someone out there? Because I don't know about you, but there is one name out there who is one game away from the Super Bowl that I think is going to be ultimately a head coach, and that is the Baltimore Ravens offensive coordinator Todd Monken. Which, by the way, I think he did spend some time with the Bucks before. So it's like we keep Todd Bowles, and then the other Todd, Todd Monken, we lose him. Then it's like you know what I'm saying here.
Yeah, I mean Todd Monken has certainly proven that he's definitely worth the interviews to become a head coach. I think he's comfortable with where he's at and the offense that he's running right now. So if you are looking at Todd Monken, you know, developing someplace else, it's going to be developing as a head coach. Because he is way too entrenched as the offensive coordinator in Baltimore with an entrenched head coach in John Harbaugh. So Todd Monken, I think his next step is to be a head coach. I don't see him going anywhere as a coordinator in any way, shape, or form.
Well, you know what, Ed? I'm going to make a prediction right now. You know how you often wonder how you often wonder how Washington has not hired a head coach yet. Like you're always wondering like how have they not had a head coach? Well, you know what I think, Ed? I think they're waiting for the Ravens season to be over so that they can interview and ultimately hire Todd Monken. That is what I'm saying right now. My prediction is that Washington, whether it's the Redskins football team, the silly nannies, whatever you want to call them. My prediction, Ed, is that Washington is going to hire Todd Monken, and it makes why not? I mean, for one, he would be staying in Maryland since we know that Washington
Mm-hmm.
is in Maryland, and like they're not that far from the Ravens. I think Washington's going to hire Monken. What do you think? Do you think that's going to happen, or do you think it could happen?
I think it could happen. You know, Munkin's got a job to do at the moment, so I'm really not expecting him to, do these interviews while preparing for these other games. Uh, but when you look at what Washington has to offer, you have, and forgive me if I keep going over the same points here, but you have an owner that is trying to wash the Dan Snyder effect out of the building.
Hmm.
You have a new GM who was the right hand man of John Lynch, putting together the San Francisco 49ers as the director of player personnel. So basically getting John Lynch to be comfortable in the GM chair. So now it's his turn to be GM. Well, he just got hired by the Commanders about a week and a half ago, and they're still looking for their head coach. I don't see a lot of chatter about why this would be a favorable destination, and I don't understand why it isn't. Because if you can get cohesiveness within all three levels and build the Commanders from the ground up with the number 2 pick, by the way, then I think you're set. You're set for a good long run in that uh, in that organization. So why they haven't selected somebody? You could be right. You could be dead on about trying to grab somebody that is part of this Final Four of the NFL playoffs before announcing that they take over the head coach duties there in Landover, Maryland. Uh, but Todd Munkin, he would certainly be, the first name that I think of to take over that role out of the coaches that are still in the tournament.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like I said, I think the Washington Redskins football team commanders, whatever the hell you want to call them, I think they have zeroed in on Todd Monken to be their next head coach, but they just can't go through any interviews for obvious reasons. And then finally, Ed, last point I want to make here: who's the other team that still doesn't have a head coach? The Seattle Seahawks.
Seattle.
Real quick, if you had to make a prediction, who do you think the next Seahawks head coach is going to be?
um, when you look at who they have interviewed, I mean, how does the prodigal son not go back? Uh, are people really that upset with Dan Quinn uh, for taking the Atlanta job? I mean that was a tough situation, losing in the Super Bowl like that. Because remember, he was a head coach when they lost the Super Bowl to the
Hmm.
Patriots. With
Hmm.
but it all that whole thing fell on Kyle Shanahan's plate, not his, as far as public opinion. But in the building, he wound up losing his job the next season and became the defensive coordinator for the Cowboys. This is the same guy that built the Legion of Boom with the Seattle Seahawks.
Yep.
So why do you not take back a guy that has head coaching experience, taking his own team to the Super Bowl, one that has architect two of the more dominant defenses over the past decade in this league, and somebody and a team that already has its offensive identity. So why they wouldn't go for Dan Quinn? I have no idea. He should be the guy that goes back there, but with the complicated ownership situation, I think that might play a factor into all this. So in the end, I think it should be Dan Quinn, at least in the short term. But we'll, because of the ownership situation that they have. Uh, but overall, I have no idea who they are actually zeroing in on.
Yeah, I mean, you see yourself. At the end of the day, Dan Quinn was the architect of one of the greatest defenses we've ever seen in the Legion of Boom. And speaking of the end of the day, folks, it's the end for us. Thank you so much once again for tuning into another episode of a Total Sports Talk. I'm David Street. That's my co-host. Ed Smith. Guys, you can check us out on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Rumble. And once again, we're not the only show on ADP. You can check out Quirks of Creation, which I mentioned earlier during my ad read. You can mention, or you can also catch Unfiltered, which is coming soon, and you can also check out Guys Night as well. And just check out all the amazing written content on the ADP website. But for now, folks, we are rounding third and headed for home.